Welcome back, Bulldogs. Our first lesson of week 2 of online learning is going to be about 3D shapes. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, wait, on Friday we did 3D shapes. You are correct. This week we're going to dig more into 3D shapes and get more practice. So, before I start, I'm going to show you today 3D shapes on a PowerPoint. Now, on Friday, I showed you 3D shapes on a video, and I held up the 3D shapes and we counted the faces, the bases, the edges, and the vertices. Now, after you watch this video, this PowerPoint, if you want to go back and watch that video as well, you can. It's under week 1 online learning Friday lessons. So that's there for you as well. So throughout this week, we're going to continue to work on 3D shapes. So if you need to go back and rewatch any of those lessons, you are absolutely welcome to. So getting started, solids are three-dimensional shapes. We discovered the word solids when we went to Brain Pop Junior and we had a quick mini lesson that solids are the exact same thing as three-dimensional shapes. Some examples of three-dimensional shapes are spheres, cubes, rectangular prisms, pyramids, cones, cylinders, and triangular prisms. Now, something really quick before we go into each three-dimensional shape, I want to point out, you may have noticed that I had 2 prisms and 1 pyramid. I want you to look at that pyramid. It's in the top middle. That pyramid has a point. Pyramids make points. I want you to always remember that. Sometimes pyramid and prisms can get tricky, but we're going to remember that pyramids make those points. When we're discussing 3D shapes, one attribute that we'll talk about is the face. A lot of the times when I hold up 3D shapes, I'll pat the face and say, the faces are the flats. A face is a plane shape that makes the sides of a solid figure. So whenever we talk about faces, they're going to be one of our 2D shapes or our plane shapes. Like if you look at this example of the cube, the 2D shape or the plane shape is a square. A cube has 6 squares for its faces. Another attribute we discuss when we talk about three-dimensional shapes are the edges. The edges are what I like to call the lines, and I'll run my finger down the edges. An edge is a line segment where 2 faces of a solid figure meet. So if you look at my cube, it has 2 squares, one on the front, one on the side. They meet on the edge. Vertex, which is 1, or vertices, which is more than 1, is a corner where 2 edges meet. If I'm holding up my 3D shapes, I'm going to poke my finger on those vertices because our vertices are like the points, like the corners if we were discussing 2D shapes. So a vertice is the corner where the 2 of those edges meet. So it's where our lines end, they meet together, they touch, and they create that point. All right, moving on to our cube. Our cube is a solid figure that has 6 square faces. It has 8 vertices and 12 edges. Our sphere is special, just like the circle. It has nothing. It has 0 faces because it's just big and round. It has 0 edges, and because it has 0 edges, it has 0 vertices. It's a 0, 0, 0, just like when we're talking about the circle when we discuss 2D shapes. A sphere is a solid figure that has the shape of a round ball. No edges, no vertices. Next up is our cone. Makes me think of the party hat. A cone is a solid figure that has a circle for its base or face. Now, the only difference here, the reason why I'm saying base is because that's what it's going to sit on. It's going to sit on its base, or the cone has to sit on its face. Anytime we put a cone down, we put it down on its base, which is one of its faces, because otherwise it would roll away. A cone has no edges. It's perfectly round all around. And it has 1 vertex, which is that point at the top. This sometimes is a challenge. Sometimes, depending on who you ask, this is something that's often debated. Because some people say a cone should not have a vertex or a vertice because it doesn't have any edges. This is a unique situation, and based off of its definition and what we've researched, we are going to say that a cone does have 1 vertex. The cylinder. It's like a can of soup. A cylinder is a solid figure that has two circles for its faces. So it has a circle on the top and a circle on the bottom, which it's sitting on. We're not going to call this a base because whenever we discuss the base, it's like that part it has to sit on. Now the cylinder has some options. It has those two faces, so we can flip it to either side. So we'll say the cylinder has two faces. It has no edges, it's a round one, and it has no vertices. There's no points on my cylinder. Next up is the rectangular prism. The rectangular prism is a solid figure whose 6 faces are all rectangles. Now don't forget, we talked about how a square can be a type of rectangle. So sometimes a rectangular prism will have a square as one of its faces, but a square is a rectangle because it follows all the rules of a rectangle. A rectangular prism has 12 edges. It has 8 vertices. Next up is our square pyramid. When we started, we talked about how a pyramid comes to a point. You see that point at the top. The reason why we're specifying that this is a square pyramid is because it has that square base. The base of a pyramid is a square. It has 4 triangles for its sides and a total of 5 bases. It has 5 vertices or 5 points. It has 8 edges.